You know, we wanted to break this up because it's a lot. It's a lot to unpack and process. But what are we unpacking? You know, here's hypocrisy. Even in constructive criticism, there's hypocrisy. We gotta talk about that. Everyone's entitled to give their opinion. Constructive feedback. Even if you're not a constructive individual, you're still entitled to give your opinion. However, doesn't it seem like nowadays the people giving constructive criticism and feedback are kind of, well, guilty of very similar, synonymous discretions themselves? I said I was going to delve deeper into, well, why it's not really anybody's fault what happened at the academies. You gotta follow along with this. This is going to be difficult to follow. We say violence is not the answer. Yet, we're being disingenuous. You know, if violence isn't the answer, which is certainly not, why have we been in 70 countries? Since the founding of our country, America has invaded 70 countries. You know, you're not supposed to solve disputes through violence. But that's exactly what we've seen people solve their disputes by in this country. Violence. You have to be honest. If violence is not the answer, then people have to know what is. You know, if you have a bias towards or against something, and everybody does, don't get me wrong, but it's a little odd when you see it. The clear bias that people have. Sometimes it's a bias towards, well, approval of something or disapproval. But it's clearly a bias. I think some people were happy to see what happened at the academy. some people were real sad to see what happened at the academy. And then some people are being opportunists. Meaning they don't care one way or the other. They just have an axe to grind. And that's the people you really got to be careful for. Because, well, what's their axe to grind? Is it a cultural axe? Is it a philosophical axe? Is it a political axe? It seems like, and you tell me if I'm wrong, certain people shouldn't be criticizing at all. This entire thing. They should keep their mouths zipped. We shouldn't hear anything from a lot of conservatives. Pretty much everybody in the conservative movement, the common household names that you know, they shouldn't have any commentary about the Academy Awards. I don't want to hear constructive criticism from them. None of us should want to hear constructive criticism from them. Their co-leader, the lunatic from Mar-a-Lago, spent 4 years committing political violence in his nation towards anyone that he perceived as being his adversary. So please, spare me. If you're in the code of 45, you probably should absolve yourself, recuse yourself of any commentary, no matter how constructive it is, on what happened at the academies. So that's a big chunk of people right there. What about conservative influencers, social media commentators? Do they have a right to give constructive feedback? Well, it depends. Depends on who you are. What your track record is. You know, say I'm in prison, and I'm in prison for embezzlement, and my cellmate, they're in prison too. They stole some cars. So both of us are thieves. But I'm going to try to act like I'm a better person because, well, I wasn't out on the streets stealing cars. I got locked up in the slammer for embezzlement. But you see how I was stealing too. So it depends on their track record, the conservative commentators that we're speaking of. If they have a good track record, and they're good people, they're entitled to speak on the goodness or badness of other people. However, How in the world are you going to listen to anything that they have to say about quote unquote goodness or what it means to be bad? So that seems reasonable, right? One conservative commentator that went all in criticizing not just Will Smith, but really Jada Pinkett Smith, who didn't do anything. I don't know how somebody that didn't do anything is lambasted for making somebody do something that they didn't have anything to do with. It's like saying you were a criminal and I happen to know you. So that makes me a criminal too because I know a criminal? But this is the logic of one conservative commentator who gave her critique. And I was listening and I was like, wow, this makes absolutely no sense unless you have an axe to grind. And it has nothing to do with the welfare of either parties involved in what happened at the academy. It solely has to do with, well, philosophy and politics. Now, don't get me wrong. We have access to grind too. But we don't do it like that. We're sort of not hypocritical. Here's the thing. For you, the person I'm talking about is Candace Owens. How is Candace Owens gonna sit there and critique Will and Jada Pinkett Smith and say that, well, they're not good people, they're the problem in society? What metric is Candace Owens using to determine good and bad? Because I'd like to know. It seems like that's defamation of character. And a lot of people, long before the 94th Academy Oscars, have been saying things about Will and Jada Pinkett Smith. But Candace Owens, Will, she said that that's the real Will Smith. You know, that sounds like confirmation bias. That sounds, well, like you're already biased towards a disdain for the individual anyway. And well, you just need something to confirm your bias. So, I don't know about that. Little iffy. But the good and bad. Is Candace Owens the right person to talk about good and bad? And people's character? You know, if you don't know this, you should, because it's a matter of public record. Candace Owens is currently being sued for $20 million by Kimberly Clasey, a black conservative woman who ran for Congress, raised $8 million. It's unheard of that a congressional candidate in their first race raises $8 million. And this woman did it. Every penny of it, she raised it. And the Republican Party was so desperate for money that they started bugging her to give them money, because nobody would give them money. And Candace Owens will. The people who give her money, they told her, well, go ahead and attack Kimberly Clasey. And well, she went on Facebook or Instagram, I don't know which platform she used, but she had a 44-minute rant where she defamed the character and good name of Kimberly Clasey, a woman she had never met before in her life. She called her a prostitute. All kinds of things. Horrible things for 44 minutes. She said about Kimberly Clasey, a black conservative woman. You know, the people that they claim they're supposed to want in their party. Here was a successful black conservative woman, and Candace Owens defamed her name to the point where Kimberly Clasey is suing her in the state of Tennessee for $20 million. Now, Candace Owens tried to get the case dismissed, but the judge so far said no. We're going to discover it. We're going to see if there's a case there that you defamed Kimberly Clasey. So all of that video footage is admissible to a jury. And then not only that, but Candace Owens didn't just stop at that 44-minute video rant. She went on other conservative pages, had interviews with other conservative commentators, continuing to defame Kimberly Clasey. So that's the person that's going to will tell us about the morality or immorality of Jada Pinkett Smith. That sounds like a snake to me. And a snake, it rhymes with hate. And snakes are going to hate this year, for sure. It's a year of rapid and rapid change. And they're full of hate. We know. I'm not going to listen to a damn thing that Candace Owens has to say about character when you're already on record defaming in litigation. Not even a liberal. She didn't own the libs or a progressive woman. Not that that would have made it any less bad. But this is a black conservative woman that she went 44 minutes defaming her name. And now she's got Jada Pinkett Smith's name in her mouth. Another black woman. So we probably don't want to get constructive feedback from somebody like that. To summarize my point. We say violence is not the answer. But, well, it's been our answer for a long period of time. You know, I was thinking, and I said, I think that Will Smith is a microcosm of America. Will Smith is the perpetual nice individual. Always smiling, always laughing, never stressing, cooler than a cucumber. But then, well, things can, well, tend to compact on each other. And things can keep stacking up and stacking up. And if they're not addressed, eventually, it comes to a head. And I think that's what we saw. Chris Rock just happened to be the recipient. But it wasn't about Chris Rock. And I think Chris Rock realized that. That's why he didn't press charges. He was like, wait a minute. The joke might have been maybe a little insensitive. But no way. Just that one joke alone gets an individual to do that. Chris Rock is a brave individual. Will Smith is a brave individual. So they both know something's off. That's why it takes time to process. And that's why we didn't jump the shark. You know, I'm not going to be bullied by fascists who are masquerading as conservatives. We have to be very careful to protect the institution of art. And we've let conservatives chip away piece by piece at the institution of art. And I think we have to be incredibly careful not to let that continue. You'll say, what do you mean? Well, before it was Will Smith, it was Alec Baldwin. And before Alec Baldwin, it was Harvey Weinstein. And before Harvey Weinstein, it was Roman Polanski. And on and on and on. And then we get, well, QAnon. You know, a fascist, Nazis, wet dream. QAnon. To be careful about conservatives chipping away at art in our society. Art is evolving and flowing, constantly in movement. It's a representation of chaos. Now, I don't know about you, but Vincent van Gogh, everybody's heard of Vincent van Gogh, correct? The famous painter. Everybody wants a Van Gogh painting. But you notice you never really hear too much about Vincent, the actual painter. Van Gogh was a deranged lunatic. I say this because, well, the individual cut his own ears off. But that didn't make him any less of a great artist. You can't find a Van Gogh painting for under $5 million. If you find a Van Gogh painting under $5 million, let the purple people's out know. So we do this all the time. We divorce the art from the individual. But sometimes they merge together. And that's what you saw at the Academy. But you have to be very careful allowing an adversary who despises art to take one more chip away at art. You know, we can all point fingers. We could. They wanted to criticize Alec Baldwin. And the reason I never said anything about it was because I thought it was ludicrous. Everybody knew it was an accident. A freak accident. And they do happen. Shocking. They happen. But conservatives took the moment when two people are processing grief and others are impacted too, to do what? To attack art, the institution, Tinseltown. Now, Alec Baldwin is a monster. Their words, not mine. But Cal Rittenhouse, you know, good riddance to the rotten house. That dude who went from Antioch to Kenosha, plain medic. Yeah, he was plain medic. He wasn't licensed as a medic or any nurse. He goes to Kenosha and murders two individuals. And this year at the America Fest, they got fireworks going off as he's coming onto the stage. They got music like it's a WWE event. And what are they celebrating and cheering on? That he murdered two individuals. Now they say it's self-defense and there's no criminality. Cool, we'll go with that. There's no criminality with Will Smith and Chris Rock either. But everybody's still saying violence is not the answer. Yet at America Fest, you just celebrated an individual who murdered two individuals. He's done nothing else that you would celebrate. I mean, if there was something else, if he had written a book and he just happened to be in Kenosha, you could at least point to, well, we're celebrating the book. And plus, he defended himself. Cal Rittenhouse's only claim to fame is being a serial killer. And at the America Fest, all the young white conservative children, young people, high school students, college age, maybe even middle school, they were cheering him on. You could hear the applause. And the only person who criticized it, oddly enough, was Tommy Lahren. She said we shouldn't be treating Cal Rittenhouse like he's some kind of celebrity. Like he's Bon Jovi. You think you wouldn't want to treat a serial killer like, well, they're a hero? But at the same time, a tragic incident like Alec Baldwin and Donald Trump Jr. makes t-shirts? I don't think I want to hear criticism from anybody that attended the America Fest. Because if your children aren't discomforted by having a serial killer walk onto the stage with fireworks in behind them, playing music, then I don't think they're discomforted by seeing Will Smith slap Chris Rock across the face. I'm not going to listen to somebody make that kind of nonsensical claim. You're not offended by what Alec Baldwin did. If you can cheer on Cal Rittenhouse. And that's exactly what they did just this year. We have the audio footage. You're never going to take back your country through weakness. Former President Donald Trump, January 6, 2021. At the eclipse near the nation's capital, to thousands of cult members, extremists, insurrectionists, that was his closing remarks. And I'm going to walk down to the Capitol with you. That's what we call gaslighting people. Now, if you were part of the insurrection, if you played any type of role in planning, organizing, funding, the worst attack since 1812 on the nation's Capitol building, you can in good conscience think that I'm going to believe that you're offended by Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Academy Awards. Remember, we can't solve our problems through violence. Yet, we see video footage after video footage of white men beating the D.C. Metropolitan Police officers, breaking windows, ransacking congressional offices, defecating and smearing it on the walls, looking for congressional members to hold mock executions, bringing nooses and gallows on the Capitol grounds. But we don't do violence in America. Do you think, hold on a minute, let me ask you a question. You don't have to answer. Do you think I'm going to listen to snakes? Especially when I know that this is a nation full of snakes. No, I'm not. I wonder, was anybody at the January 6th insurrection? Did any of them make a phone call to the FCC complaining about what they saw at the Oscars? They say the FCC had a lot of complaints about violence. Did anybody call the FCC when they kept repeatedly playing the most disturbing and violent thing that any of us have witnessed since 9/11 in America? The lynching of George Floyd for 9 minutes and 22 seconds. And those planes going into the World Trade Building. Did anyone call the FCC for that? You know, like I said, when certain snakes have an axe to grind, we already know. But you have to call out the rampant hypocrisy, the rampant disingenuousness. So a lot of people can't criticize, can't say anything. Or if they do say something, we shouldn't look at it as being credible. The QAnon followers, they already believe everyone there at the academy is a pedophile, is evil, a Satanist, all kind of bullshit. The worst of worst, they already believe it. So them seeing Will Smith slap Chris Brown, they all cheered and went, see, I told you, the moral decay, the moral society, the decay of Tinseltown, oh, and the left, and they, you know, that bullshit. Because it was confirmation bias of something they already believed anyway. Which is the worst about those people. So you really think that I'm going to listen to individuals like that give constructive feedback? And then there's one more group, the moralists, the evangelicals, the Christians. They said it was morally wrong. Well, you know, a lot of people want to cast stones. Just make sure your house isn't glass. Harvey Weinstein was a bad individual that did bad things. But his art, a lot of that was impactful in a good way. And I get it. The individual doesn't sometimes match up with their art. I get it. But you know, it seems like that certain institutions love to criticize and attack other institutions and play this game of moral superiority. I'll give you an example. Everyone in Tinseltown knew about Harvey Weinstein. He was friends with everyone, right? That's not true. It's true, very much so. But conservatives use it as well. Because you were friends with Harvey Weinstein, you knew he was doing all of these bad things. And that makes you a bad person too. Now, this is why I say you got to be careful about allowing certain individuals to attack art. Because no other institution do we allow such nonsense to even be spoken of. The military. There's rampant domestic violence, rape of female soldiers in the military. In a lot of cases, the commanders know the individuals who are committing these crimes. But we're not going to criticize the military as an institution because of problematic individuals in the military. Now, we don't in American society, by and large. What about the business community? They outsource your jobs. They don't pay you a living wage. A lot of your managers mistreat you. But we don't say, well, our business model is abusive and controlling and toxic. We cheer on and love capitalism. But the only time we want to chastise an institution is when it comes to the arts. And you have to be careful allowing conservatives to do this. I could do this too. You know, I'm no fan of the church. Of the Christian. I'm no fan of it. But I don't attack that institution on stupid bullshit and cherry pick. Sure, when I come across a story, I go, oh, well, this is interesting. Going back to Harvey Weinstein, they say everybody knew about Harvey. It was an open secret in Tinseltown. Who knows? Once upon a time in Hollywood, who knows? Maybe it was. Did everybody know about what was happening at Liberty University? You know, you gotta throw shit back at them when they do this shit. And that's the one thing that artists and the art community doesn't do. It doesn't like getting in the mud. I'm not a member of the academy, so I can say whatever the fuck I want to. Everybody knew about what was happening at Liberty University too, with Jerry Falwell Jr. and his wife. Oh, everybody knew. The administrators, the faculty, the students who were, well, photographed in fields, exposed. Oh, you haven't seen or heard all of the shit. There's a lot of shit that went down for years, decades, at Liberty University. Rapes, sexual assaults, domestic violence, toxic work environment. Everybody knew in the Christian evangelical white community about Liberty University and the shit that Jerry Falwell was doing. And Becky Falwell. They knew about the adultery. Everybody knows about the Mormon church. Well, no, not everybody. They haven't subpoenaed the records from the Mormon church that will show that they were integrally involved in the transatlantic slave trade in America. You gotta subpoena the record. The art community is never going to attack. But you know, they always go on the attack. So I feel like you gotta defend yourself. I think that was where Will Smith was. For decades, Will and Jada and his children have been vilified. And he's easy going. It's like water off of a duck's back. But at some point, that bullshit just gets to you. It's constant. It's never ending. It's targeted and precise. You see, even when a snake is not poisonous, it still bites. It's targeted and precise, and it's constant. And they never let up. I'm not justifying violence. I'm saying that's all America knows is violence. That's all you know. And you can tell children, oh, violence is not the answer. And then at the same time, you can walk outside your home holding semi-assault weapons and pointing them at unarmed children who weren't even on your property. You know, like the couple, the McClaskey family in Missouri, who pointed weapons at unarmed youth walking peacefully in a Black Lives Matter demonstration. The former president, the lunatic from Mar-a-Lago, he pardoned them. They didn't serve a day in prison. Are they going to criticize Will Smith? Violence. This is the only nation I know of on the planet where you can go into an elementary school, unalive dozens of little babies and children and teachers, and nothing has changed about the gun laws. And in fact, you have a conservative commentator Who says, well, it was made up, it's a hoax, it never happened? To distract you from this being the only nation where such a barbaric and heinous act of violence can occur with no laws being changed. George Floyd publicly lynched in front of children in broad daylight. Qualified immunity. Nothing changed with policing in America. And you're going to talk about violence? Anybody that's bought a bag of Skittles from George Zimmerman, you know, a signed bag of Skittles. And you know why Skittles, right? Because Trayvon Martin and him got into a scuffle when he murdered Trayvon Martin. That's how George Zimmerman makes his money, by signing bags of Skittles and selling it to other Americans for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. People have signed bags of Skittles from George Zimmerman in their households and apartments, duplexes, all across America. But violence is not the answer. You know, the symbol of this country, the empire, it used to be a snake on their currency, on their fiat. It was a snake. You say, I don't remember this. That's fine. You go and you look it up. But then they changed it to an eagle. And you gotta be careful when you select birds. They made it an eagle. Now an eagle is a very interesting species. It's a bird of prey. It swoops down. It's a vulture. It eats death. It feasts off of carcasses. That's what an eagle does. But we're now impenetrable. He said, this is impenetrable. You can't penetrate this purple people's house. And I did. We went right through it. Like it was nothing. Like a hot knife through butter. What Will Smith did, his behavior, of course he was wrong. It was unjust. And he apologized for it. It's up to Chris Rock to process and either accept or decline his apology. Those are the only two individuals involved in this. Everybody else can opine to the last breath of oxygen is out of their body. I'm going to repeat what Will Smith said. Keep my fucking wife's name out your mouth. Jada Pinkett Smith had nothing to do with this, and yet they still are bringing her into this. Candace Owens, please stop defaming black women. You've got to get another career. I know that one pays really well. But it's a bad look and you have no credibility. Why would I listen to you about your assessment of Jada Pinkett Smith when your assessment of Kimberly Klacik was way out in right field? So far out in right field that it went past the foul line. And the umpire said, foul ball to the right. And you're the person I'm supposed to listen to about good and bad and whatever that might mean to you? Oh boy. We gotta protect the art in Tinseltown in general. We've seen this type of bullshit before. In the 50s it was McCarthy. Everybody was a communist. Now it's everybody's a degenerate. If there's conservatives 20 years from now, it'll be some other bullshit. They constantly attack Tinseltown, art in Hollywood. But they better clean their own house. They better clean up their own behavior before, well, they criticize and critique. I think Will Smith is like apple pie. Violence is a microcosm of America. Will Smith is a microcosm of where America is. This is a nation that did a fair of honors all across America. A fair of honor. Where somebody even believed that you slandered their good name. They would meet to have a duel with pistols. Do you know any other nation? And let me know. You can drop it in the comment section below. Do you know any other nation where a vice president, a former vice president now, by a bunch of centuries, Aaron Burr, a former vice president of this country, murdered the former Treasury Department Secretary of this country, Alexander Hamilton? They had an affair of honor, a duel, and Weehawken, New Jersey. Now, affair of honors were outlawed in New York. Get this, this is how much Americans love violence. They went to Weehawken, New Jersey, where it was still kind of relatively legal, but illegal in New Jersey. But in that particular area, you could do that particular type of bullshit. It was famous and known for affair of honors. Hamilton and Burr get together in 1804. Now, the person who's rowing the boat, they don't know that they're transporting a pistol because it's locked up in a box. And they haven't seen what's in there. And then there's spectators who come to these duels. But they don't actually directly witness the duels, because they're illegal technically in the empire. So if the cops or somebody in charge, the governor, asks you, what did you see? You're like, I didn't see anything, but you were there. But I didn't see it. You know how you can be there but not see something? They would make them turn their backs facing the opposite of the duel. So they would hear the gunshot, but they wouldn't see who shot what and who shot who and who shot first or second. Complete deniability and alibi. Burr, the sitting vice president at the time, murdered Alexander Hamilton, a founding father, the founder of the Federalist Party. Aaron Burr went on to continue serving as Vice President of the United States of America. Violence? Americans don't like violence? You fuckers pay for an HBO boxing match where you watch people knock the shit out of each other. Violence. Oh, everybody knows Americans love violence. No. We've got to get better. But let's not pretend that we haven't been unwell and that we're still kind of on the mend.